Everybody, and welcome to another Faster Masters Rowing Radio. We are the place where having a rowing coach only makes you better. Following a program gives you a true pathway to becoming a confident sculler or rower who's respected by your peers. You can become the athlete you want to row with. I'm Rebecca Caro, and today, as usual, I'm joined by Marlene Royal.
Hello, Rebecca, and good to see everybody.
Yes, welcome again. It's been a really interesting week. You've got some changes that have happened locally, haven't you?
Yes, we are here in the area outside of Montreal. They've moved us to red zone today, which means we've gone back into lockdown for the next 4 weeks. So kind of a hassle, but I guess we just have to deal with it. And fortunately, we can do stuff outside and things like that. But basically, all businesses are closed, except for essential businesses, and they have reduced capacity right now. So for the next 4 weeks, that's where we're at right now. So hopefully, it will improve the situation.
And welcome to our live watchers and viewers. Cece is here from Windy Whidbey. She says, "Happy fall." I do think fall. It's a good word for autumn because, of course, the leaves falling, but it sounds like you're falling. Now, I have a very special photograph. Each day, you'll have noticed in the recent weeks that I went shopping and I bought a green screen. And this week, here is my green screen photograph of the day. And you will see it is a wonderful quad, mixed quad. And we have mum and dad in the bow and the stroke seats and the two sons in the middle. And they all went racing wearing Hawaiian colored shirts.
I know, this is great. I love this.
So at the weekend, my club hosted our local regatta. It's called the Bennett Shield. And for the first time, they introduced family quads. So we had 5 entries, and the picture you see there is the Brake family, Chris at stroke, his son Michael behind him, who rows for New Zealand, who came up specially to do the event. God knows how he got a release from rowing New Zealand, but he did. He's in the New Zealand pair, his younger brother James, and mum Paula in the bow seat.
Great.
And they weren't the only ones.
They won? Did they win?
No, because the starters in their wisdom decided it would be a handicap start. And recognizing that one member of the crew, mum, is a very inexperienced rower, but the other one is heading to the Olympic Games,
right?
A rotten handicap. So they got beaten by the Henry family from Mercer, where mum didn't row because they had 3 kids, you see, benefits of 3 children. So it was dad, Brett, and his 3 kids, who were all at the regatta racing anyway. So they won it. And then we had the Erdman family with my friend Arnaz, who was one of my students, in with her 3 kids. And then we had the Quinlan Dorbeck family with Jackie in the bow, who was one of my students, and 2 of her daughters and 1 son. She said they had one hell of a family dinner when they were trying to decide who would sit in which seat. And do you know how they decided who would be stroke?
No.
The one that had won the most medals.
Oh, well, that'll do it. Hey, I mean, that's fair enough.
I figured it exactly the same.
When I was in university, when you were a senior, there was a tradition that every Friday in the fall we had an inter-squad race, and if you were a senior, you at Thursday night. I went to Boston University, and this was in the old days. Okay, this is not in the last 20 years. We used to meet with our coach at the local pub, and we had. Each senior was able to set their own boat. So we went around in a circle and each one of us boated our own boat for the race. And we did that. That was a tradition whenever you were in your senior year. And in the fall, we had an inter-squad race every single Friday morning. And we used to win these medals. I might even have them here. I can show you. We used to win these medals that were nickels. These are from those inter-squad race, nickels and quarters. And our coach used to make them. He used to make them. And Stuart McDonald was my coach, and he used to bring them. And these are from those inter-squad races back in my senior year. So that was a lot of fun.
That is awesome. So he just drilled a hole through a coin and
1 week it was a penny or a quarter or something like that. But the winning crew every Friday, the winning crew won a medal. It was loads of fun.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Now, we are grateful as ever to the sponsors of the Rowing Chat podcast network. Our first sponsor this week is the Rowing Retailers Directory. Have you ever wondered how many different rowing shoe companies there are, or where to find rowing gifts for the holidays? Announcing the Rowing Retailer Directory, compiled into 16 different categories, from oars to ergs, from repairs to photographers. You're guaranteed to find what you're looking for. Go to rowing.chat/retailer and browse around. And if you want to add your rowing business, please get in touch. Since last week, we have new listings for the Erg Rats, Ahoy Boats, who do coastal boats. Sorry, the Erg Rats do wonderful, funny, funky t-shirts. We have Rob Thompson Furniture, who makes the most beautiful coffee tables out of old boats. We have Boathouse Sports, the popular rowing and racing unisuits and jacket manufacturer. And we have the Crew Nerd Software guys, all registered now on the rowing.chat/retailers. Our second sponsor is my annual book. It's called Rowing Tales 2020. It's a collection of rowing stories, which I have published every year since 2017 in time for Christmas. This is our 4th edition, and it contains anecdotes that will make you laugh and others that will make you hope this never, ever happens to you. This will be your fun bedtime reading, and you can buy Rowing Tales on Amazon. The 2020 edition is not yet released, but if you want to pre-order and get a discount, email rebecca@caro.com and I will send you a link with how to buy when it's ready. Now, we've got big plans for the 24th of November, and it's not Thanksgiving. Marlene and I are going to do a secret podcast episode called Transitioning to Winter. So with apologies to our Southern Hemisphere friends who don't need this, all the things that you need as you go into the winter season, such as how to avoid injury, technical improvements on the erg, reviewing your past season, setting new goals, and ways to stay focused and motivated. You can join by getting a ticket at fastermastersrowingwinter.eventbrite.co.nz, and that link will be in the show notes. This is not a public podcast. We will not be showing it live as normal. So if you're on our newsletter list, which you can join at fastermastersrowing.com/newsletter, you will automatically get the link. You don't need to go to Eventbrite and get a ticket. But we would also be hugely grateful if our watchers and listeners would share the Eventbrite link around and invite their crewmates to come along. We will be recording it, so if you're not free at the precise time when we're on live, you will get sent a link afterwards so that you can watch it. And we look forward to seeing you then on November 24th. Now, Marlene's getting up on some speaking platforms.
Virtually, anyway, yes. So what is coming up soon is the U.S. Rowing Conference, and it starts on December 8th and goes through December 13th. I'm sorry. So it starts on December 8th, goes through the 13th. And this is a virtual conference, and anyone who is a member of US Rowing can sign up and join for the conference. The registration is on regattacentral.com, and they have different prices for, they have one price that is a pass to all of the talks for the entire conference, or you can buy a single day pass. They also have rates for non-US rowing members. So if you're not a US rowing member, but you would still like to attend the conference or watch one of the conference days, there is a rate for a non-member. And one thing to keep in mind is these conferences, excuse me, the conference will be going on live virtually. However, all of the links will be saved, and you will have access to those links for up to 6 months. So if you don't have time to watch everything as it's going on or at the time that it's live, you will have access to the talk so that you can go back and watch them on your own time. And there is some terrific material here this year. Rebecca's posted the link here for the breakdown of the specific schedule, but basically the first day is going to focus on the art of coaching. And so there's some very, very good speakers like Chris Chase and Kirsten Betts, who are going to talk about optimizing athletic performance, the language of coaching, a supportive coaching environment. And the entire day is, there's quite a number of talks this day that's posted up on the schedule. Day 2 is the day that I'm involved with. This is the day that's devoted to training. And I have to say that this is an incredibly star-studded cast of speakers that US Rowing has pulled together. And I really, if you're interested in training for rowing, like this is a great day to attend. Our keynote speaker is Dr. Steven Sealer. He's going to talk about optimizing endurance training. He's a world-renowned exercise physiologist. He's an American physiologist who lives and works in Norway. He's very, very well known for his discussion on polarized training and endurance training. So he's going to be speaking first, and then it's going to be followed by Frank Clayton, who's going to talk about repetition and training the whole athlete in a repetitive movement sport. The next speaker is myself. I'm actually at the same time. They've got 2 tracks going for there. So I'm also right after Steven Sealer, and I'm going to be talking about training for life, masters rowing. And so we're going to talk about a lot of the different aspects of training for longevity, what's important, what we need to pay attention to as masters, so that we can stay at a high performance and a high fitness level throughout our life cycle. We're then just going to be talking and hearing from Karen Kalara, who is a very, very well-known physical therapist. And she's going to be talking about taking care of your body, which a master's prehabilitation topic. And Steven Sealer is also going to be talking about interval sessions. So those are 2 people you don't want to miss. Our Stuart McGill, and we have talked about Stuart McGill in the past. He is a very, very well-known back researcher, lives in Canada. He works with a lot of high-performance athletes, particularly rowers. His wife is a very, very high-level masters rower, and he's going to talk about enhancing resilience, performance in the back of the back-pained rower. And he's just, he's the best person to talk about this topic probably on the face of the earth. So followed by Stuart is the puzzle of strength training from our colleagues Will Ruth, Blake Gorley, and Joe DeLeo. And they're going to be having their presentation, and the day is going to end up with a panel discussion with all of us there, taking questions and answers. So it's a really exciting day, I think, for training and rowing. So it's a great event coming up. So we're really excited about that cast of speakers. The next day is devoted to rigging and biomechanics. So if you're into rigging and biomechanics, we've got Volker Nolte, Valery Kleshnov, Mike Purser, a lot of different people, Chris Chase, talking about what comes first, debating technique, rigging, and biomechanics. So there's a whole, I mean, it's quite a detailed schedule. So I really encourage people to take a look at it, because that might be a day that you'd be interested in. They're also going to talk about, there's going to be later in the conference time devoted to coastal rowing. There's a whole day for diversity, equity, and inclusion, which I believe is free of charge to
it is.
Attend.
Anyone.
Right, anyone can attend that. There's referee education, business of rowing, adaptive and para rowing on these other 3, 4, 5 days of the conference. So it's, I think it's wonderful, this virtual format, because it gives all of us a chance to see these, listen to these incredible professionals. And, you might not be able to fly from Australia to go to this conference, but here now you have, access to this terrific information. So I'm pretty excited about it.
Absolutely. And from Australia, you just have to get up in the middle of the night. But hey, you do that anyway to go rowing. So
right. But you can also watch the links afterwards. You'll have access to the materials for 6 months. So
that's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I look forward to watching and listening. We're going to launch into a topic that we know affects an awful lot of our watchers and listeners on Faster Masters Rowing Radio, which is how to train while you're caring for kids and elders. Our parents, our children, and everything in between. And often the responsibility falls very unevenly. I think we all know this. And we've had a email in from a very loyal listener whose name I will conceal to, but his story is so heartfelt and so amplifying of the situation that he finds himself in. I'll be 78 in just a little over a week, and I live on an island in Puget Sound, a couple of hours drive north of Seattle. Most of my rowing's done on salt water in a Chesapeake Lightcraft Oxford Shell 2, which is an open water single. I love to row, and mostly I row recreationally now, but I have belonged to rowing clubs in the past where I competed in 8s and quads. I belonged to a local rowing club last winter, but had to give that up due to COVID-19 and moving out of the area, and I started working with an online rowing coach. Besides being old, I'm full-time caregiver for my wife who has Parkinson's disease and dementia. My life is very stressful and I'm generally sleep deprived. I do have a caregiver who comes in 4 days a week for about 6 hours a day, and this allows me to get out and row when the weather and my body commit. And I also have an indoor rowing machine I can use when my wife's condition allows. So this just resonated with us. He's not the only person who's got in touch with us and asked us for advice about how to cope with the pressures of everyday life. And to be fair, actually, these pressures could just be a really highfalutin job. That tends not to interrupt you in the middle of the night, but it can do as well. So, Marlene, why don't you kick off? What's your headline advice?
Well, this is something that I talk with athletes about a lot, because people who are now in their 40s and 50s and 60s might have older parents, and you might be that middle person who has both children and parents to care for. And the first thing is rowers tend to be very generous people, and they tend to, if they are devoted to something, they tend to give their all to it. And that includes caring for their parents and their kids, and, they're very devoted people. So one of the things that I have worked with athletes on in the past is, first, you do have to take care of yourself, because if you don't take care of yourself, it's going to be very hard for you to take care of other people. And and even though it's difficult, you have to create some boundaries, and scheduling can be a real problem because you might have things that are unpredictable interruptions, and we accept that emergencies are going to come up and those types of things are going to happen. But I think if you look at your day and what you think you're required to do, first I would say try to be as consistent with some type of exercise as you can. Now, if you're putting out a lot of energy into caring for other people and your schedule is really disturbed, you might not be in the place right at that moment to, say, train for racing, which would take a focus, say, a lot of concentration. But staying on a regular exercise program is going to reduce stress. It's going to reduce cortisol levels. It's going to help you sleep better. It's going to help you eat better, because, if you start, you're generally going to eat better and feel better all day long. So try to carve out, maybe it's 45 minutes, maybe it's, maybe an hour is too much, but try to carve out any amount of time, even if it's 30 minutes, that you get on your erg, you go for a walk, you do stretching. Some days when you have more time, then perhaps you can get out on the water. You might not be able to do that every day when you have a really, really busy schedule taking care of people. But I do think you have to make an appointment with yourself and try to find the best time of day to do something for yourself, whether it's active rest, it's stretching, whether it's just lying down and being quiet, whether it's getting in your car and going for a drive. Sometimes that's the only way people can be alone sometimes, is get in the car and go for a drive or a bike ride. But I think to not give up on structure, that's the thing. Like it'll happen sometimes when someone says, oh, I'm just so busy in this, I'm just going to throw my training plan out the window. And what happens is then you're probably going to really let it go because you've just lost your commitment to it. Commit to 30 minutes a day. As I said, keep the bar low. And when you have time that you can do more things, do more things. If you can get a caregiver, you know that, okay, I can plan to do some exercise or training at that time. See if somebody can do your grocery shopping for you. What can you delegate to other people that you would normally do? Can you get someone to come to clean the house for you? Can you get someone to take care of the yard? Can you free up some time? If you could free up some time and give that task to somebody else, what would you give them? So that's kind of where I would start, is like, look for little opportunities. Even if it's not a big chunk of time, you might have 2 30-minute periods of time during the day, right?
Yeah, particularly if you know that you can, for example, count on them having an afternoon nap, where you can say, I won't nap now, I'm going to take advantage. There was also a great anecdote told us in an earlier episode that I did with a guest who was looking for advice on how to handle rowing. He had young children. And one of the pieces of advice that was recommended to me was this lady who had been a swimming mum. And she said, I spent hours taking my kids to swimming. And what I ended up doing was putting the erg in 2 pieces in the back of the car. And then while the kids were swimming, I would assemble the erg and I would row in the car park. So I was there. When they finished swimming, they would come out, and I had succeeded in doing a workout while they were doing their thing. And I thought that was really great creativity. Obviously, wonderful that she had enough money to be able to afford to buy her own erg and a car big enough to take it.
Right.
But I thought that was quite neat.
Yes. Or even something like elastic bands. I remember last year around holiday time, we did a performance feature in Faster Masters that we did a travel circuit with elastic bands. So if you are somewhere where you have to wait for a long time, where you can get outside or get away from, have a little private space, you can do you can do elastic exercises. You can do that for 20 or 30 minutes when you have a little window of time. So those are definitely little things. Even just doing squats, like if you have to wash the dishes, do some sets of squats, do some isometric things, walk up and down the stairs more. Obviously it's really nice. I think definitely get an indoor rower for your home. I think if you can afford that is something that becomes very, very important. When it's dark out, you can train. If the weather isn't good, if you have a small window of time, it's just a really economical way to get in some training. If you don't have time, because to go to the boathouse, you need more time. You need a couple of hours to go to the boathouse and row and get home. And that may not be feasible, but if you have a caretaker for some hours, perhaps, some days of the week, you can do that. And there's one woman that I work with, and she's like super mom. Okay. And her name is Dion, and she's a super masters rowers, and she's got 2 kids, right? And I swear, I'm like, I just talked to her and I was like, how old are your kids now? They seem like they've been kids for like our whole life. They've been kids. And now her kids are arriving at 8 years old now, her oldest one. And, we've worked together since before her children were born. So we've been through all this child raising process, which has been really interesting. And she told her, she trains around her kids' naps. She trains around, her kids now go to swimming classes and soccer, and they're starting to get involved in sports. And the other day, there was just the funniest. She's got an erg at home. She's got her weights, things that she can do at home. She likes to get to the gym when she can, when she can do that, and her husband, takes care of the kids. But there was a situation where the 2 kids, they were having a little conflict about something in the bedroom, and she's on her erg, doing her workout, and the boy and the girl come, and they said, he won't let Mickey come to the birthday party. And then she said, I have 7 more minutes to row on the rowing machine. Could Mickey go to the party for 7 minutes? And then when I'm finished, we'll decide what to do with Mickey in the birthday party. And I just thought it was just so hysterical. And, all these creative things to, teach. She's like, well, now my kids are interested to row, and, get the kids on the erg, or she gets them up, they get a little bit rambunctious in the house. Okay, kids, we go outside and we run down to the end of the driveway, and then we run back, so it's just like she introduces them to these sports that, when they need to burn some energy, and, she gets them into their kid training. And it's just incredible, really. It's just really funny.
I hope I get to meet Dion someday. I remember seeing someone in the town where I used to live, where instead of driving her kid to school, she would jog alongside the kids. So she took all the kids' gear. So she had the bag and the lunch and everything. And the kid was wearing running shoes, but just wearing their school uniform, because kids don't sweat too much. And she ran at whatever pace her child could manage. And she carried everything. And obviously after the school drop off, then she had to run home. So she got, running at her own pace, going home. And, even if you can't do the full distance to school, you could drive part way, park up the car. It's the same sort of principle of get off the bus 1 stop before your home stop, and walk the last stop, when people are just starting an exercise. And I just thought that was so impressive.
And there's, a very good coaching friend of mine. Her name is Naomi Schechter Patino. We rowed together at Boston University, but then she was the director of Florida Rowing Center for quite a number of years until 2007, when she actually had her first child. Now she's got a son and twins, and she's from New York City, so they live just across from Central Park. And she's also one of these like incredibly creative moms. So now when the lockdown and all that started in New York City, she said, well, we commute to school every day. So we take the kids out, we go do a bike or a jog around Central Park, and that's our commute to school. And then we go back in the apartment, and then we go to school, So,
Yeah, you could walk down the staircase if you're in an apartment building, walk down the staircase and walk back up the staircase. And that gives you, that little extra bit of A, time, and B, exercise.
Yes. And just that structure of like, well, we're going out and we're getting dressed and we're going out and then we're starting the day. So I think, those kind of little strategies with kids are great.
We have a comment from a live watcher. I look at my calendar every week. I look at the weather, the meetings, the obligations to family, and I put my exercise times on my calendar as appointments, whether it's weights, erg, run, bike, row, depending on the amount of time and the weather. If I schedule it and write it down, I'm more likely to do it and stick to it.
Yes, absolutely. That's what I say. Like making an appointment with yourself is really important because you have to protect your time. And I think this is, when you have an unpredictable schedule, especially if somebody has a disease process where you just don't, you don't know what's going to happen all of the time. You have to be a little bit on call all the time. Just thinking about answering the question, like, if you have time set aside and say you have a caretaker or you have somebody else to, look at what can you offload. I think that's what you've got to look at, because most of us who are rowers tend to take on too much, right? There's a beautiful word called no. And sometimes you have to protect your personal time a lot. And so I like Cece's idea that if you make an appointment with yourself and somebody asks you to do something, you basically have to ask yourself, do I want to give up my run to go do that? And if you do, that's okay. But you have to make that deal with yourself. You have to renegotiate that time with yourself. And, I think it is easy when you feel very responsible to give up that personal time. But I think on a consistent basis, making sure that you have some amount of time to yourself is going to make you feel better and make you a better caretaker and happier caretaker and healthier caretaker all around. Because you just, if you get run down, who's going to take care of you? So
I'd like to talk a little bit now about strategies that you can use to stay active and then stay engaged with a crew situation. Now, many of us have regular teams that we go out with, and some of us have erratic teams that we go out with. That's great. But if you are in the situation where you're caring for someone else and you know that unexpected things can happen, I have a specific recommendation. Have a small group of people whose lives are more flexible than yours and who you can call on at short notice. And you can use these people in a couple of different ways if they're happy to, be part of your support network. The first is you could call them and say, can we row today? I'm free in 30 minutes or 45 minutes, so that and they're flexible enough that often they can. And the other is if you commit to a crew and you find that something happens at home and you can't be there, it allows you then to find a substitute replacement for yourself in that crew, so that if you have to drop out, you've got someone else who can take your place. Because obviously you don't want to end up feeling bad that you let other people down and they couldn't go out, which of course we do feel. But then if you have a support network of folks who can help out, that's just awesome. And of course, actually having a longer list is better, because then you've got more options.
Definitely. Yeah, that's a very good point. And, and you may have 2 or 3 people who are your, regular buddies that, you can come and row if something comes up, so that's.
Of course, the other thing about training at home and those sorts of flexible regular buddies is that you could open up a Zoom or a Google Meet with them and say, I have got 30 minutes. Can we do an erg together? And then, you can do that. And don't forget that on your erg, you can do weight training, power training as well. You jack up the fan vent to 10 and you go at slow stroke rates, and you can do some really good weight loading exercise. For example, simple things, 20 firm, 20 light at a high resistance and a very low rate. So your movement is very deliberate. And that'll give you the equivalent of getting in the gym and lifting weights.
Yeah, talking about power in rowing, that's a whole nother topic for us.
Do I have to write this for another day? Power in rowing. We will write it. I will write it down. There you go. We will do this. We will do this in the future. Penny.
Oh, Penny. Good to see Penny. Good.
She says it's definitely harder rowing with young children. So Penny, you're also injured at the moment. So I hope you're recovering well. But again, coming back from injury is actually, in a way, a similar situation, isn't it? For having carers, because you're caring for yourself and you can't do what you would normally do, whether it's your job or, so yeah.
Well, I think, another thing to consider if you're at home is, we talked about this last year. Remember we talked about the Erg Studio and you showed a picture of my Erg Studio looking out. Okay, going back to this theme, put your indoor rower or your workout situation in a really nice place in your house if you can, because it should be rather than like in the middle in your garage surrounded by junk. I know, like me, that would drive me crazy because I wouldn't like to see all this stuff around. I want to see sort of a more clean environment around me. Some people, it might not bother them, but I think if it's your personal time, create your little, even if you get some dividers to put around you, just to create a little shield or a small space, that could be really important just for your psychological space and for your focus, to have that little personal zone or a nice room to go in. I know that sometimes when people work at home, there are times when the kids aren't allowed to go into the office if you're working in there, but maybe you can set up these kind of boundaries so the kids know, mommy's doing her training right now, so you stay with daddy during the time when mommy's doing her training. And couples can work with that, or partners can work with that, of that one partner is kind of, okay, we're going to take the kids out, or we're going to do, bake cookies while, your other partner is rowing. And they start to learn that, this is not the time to interrupt, because, you have to work on those things with the kids too, so that they respect your time the way that they want you to respect their time going down the line. So, you can teach those little life lessons in there.
So I have a dreadful story from a very good friend of mine, who's a lady who's now into her early 70s. And when she was young and very energetic, she decided she would paint the tin roof of their house. So single-story houses are normal in New Zealand, and they're basically corrugated iron. And she was pregnant at the time, and she said she knew that she had to get this done before the baby came. And it was a hot day. So she put on a bikini, and she was up on the roof painting. This was a reasonably safe environment. The trouble was she didn't know what to do with her toddler. And so she put him in his little walking harness and tied him to the chimney. And he sat there playing, tied to the chimney, while she was frantically painting the roof. And then her neighbor came home, and he crashed into a tree in his driveway because he couldn't believe what he was seeing.
Oh my God. Oh dear. I was going to say, I thought you would say she made a swing and hung them from a tree nearby so she could see him, but he was safe, it's kind of thing.
But yeah, so they can't escape. Tethering children at a certain age clearly has its benefits. Says the childless woman.
Definitely. Or if you can, when you're erging, can you set the kids up right so they're nearby you, so they see you and they have their own something to do, so
in a playpen or something, because we used to have a playpen which was like a fenced in little zone.
Yes. And Dion, I mentioned, she said, you can't believe how many cartoons I've watched when erging, so
endless Peppa Pig.
Right, but listen, it's whatever works, whatever works.
So I hope that's been helpful for folks listening and watching. Please remember to sign up for our winter rowing masterclass. The URL's on the screen, fastermastersrowingwinter.eventbrite.co.nz. And we very much hope that we'll see you there on the 24th of November. Any final words, Marlene?
No, I think everyone have a nice week. I may be up for my last row on Friday before our weather turns sort of cold, but I'm going to squeeze in a little bit more if I can.
Fantastic. And I had a bit of a wintry row this morning as well. Last remarks from some of our live watchers. Peter Anthony used to put a toddler in a life jacket in a tub scull with him and just row them up the river on occasion. There you go. That's perfect.
Yeah. And in Argentina, when I rowed in Buenos Aires, they have coxed singles.
Oh,
it's awesome. It's completely awesome. I mean, if you have a little kid, then you could put them, if it were a safe situation, you could take them with you, which is even better, right? Maybe, unless you need that personal time. I don't know, but
my mom had a bicycle with a child seat behind it, and she would go out with my youngest sister, on the bike. And she said, when I needed a bit more, we would sing as I was cycling. And she said, trust me, that's a whole load of oxygen deprivation, but it was quite cool. She said my sister would swing from side to side. She said,
oh dear, yeah, that's maybe not so easy. Right?
Oh, well, there are many ways of doing this. So thank you for joining us for Faster Masters Rowing Radio, the show dedicated to masters athletes who want fun, fitness, and confidence in their rowing. You can become a student of the sport by buying a Faster Masters Rowing program subscription today at fastermastersrowing.com/join. Until next time, bye-bye.